My dad kicked me out with a suitcase on my 19th birthday. 2 weeks later, he begged me back. The last thing my father said to me on my 19th birthday was, "Take the suitcase and go before I call the police." The first thing he said 2 weeks later was, "Please, come home." I was wrong, but by then it was too late, because in those 14 days I had learned exactly who packed that suitcase and why. If you've ever had somebody decide your guilt before you even opened your mouth, stay with me. And if stories about betrayal family and the kind of revenge that doesn't need raised voices are your thing, like the video, subscribe. And let me tell you how my father's worst mistake started with a birthday candle and ended with him standing in the rain, begging at a door that was never opening again. My name is Elena Ward. I turned 19 on a Thursday in April, and I got thrown out of my own home before the cake was even cut. We lived in a suburb outside Chicago, in one of those brick houses that all look respectable from the street and rotten from the inside. My dad owned a small commercial cleaning company, not glamorous, but steady. Offices, medical buildings, private schools, the kind of business that only looks simple if you're not the one holding it together. I was, not officially, of course. Officially, I was helping out until college. Unofficially, I was the one doing invoices, payroll summaries, late night scheduling changes, and the polite apology emails when one of Dad's cleaners called out and a client threatened to cancel. I'd been doing pieces of that job since I was 16. After my mom died, I became useful. That's an ugly sentence, but it's the truest one. A year later, my dad remarried, and along with my stepmother came her daughter, Betrayal. She was 21, loud in that confident way people get when life has never really corrected them. Betrayal liked expensive nails, expensive coffee, expensive mistakes. She also liked my father's attention, and she hated that he trusted me with the business more than her. I should have paid closer attention to that on my birthday. The whole house felt wrong from the minute I woke up. Too tidy, too quiet. My stepmother was suddenly sweet. Betrayal was smiling too much. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. I remember thinking, maybe they actually planned something. That was my first mistake. Around 7 that night, Dad called me into his office. I thought maybe he had a card for me, or college money, or at least one normal moment. Instead, there was a hard-shell suitcase by the desk. My suitcase. The navy one my mom used to take on weekend trips. Dad had 3 printed bank statements laid out in front of him. Betrayal stood in the corner with her arms folded, wearing that fake hurt expression people practice in mirrors. My stepmother was by the door already looking exhausted, like I'd inconvenienced her just by existing. Dad tapped the papers and said, "Tell me where the money is." I actually laughed, not because it was funny, because my brain refused to catch up. It was just over $8,000. 3 transfers out of the company reserve account over 10 days. The login attached to the transfers was mine. I said it wasn't me. Dad asked again. I said it wasn't me. Then Betrayal spoke, soft and wounded, and said she'd seen me in the office late on Tuesday. Said she didn't want to believe it. Said she'd tried to protect me. That was when I understood this wasn't a discovery. It was a performance. The suitcase was already packed, which meant the verdict had been reached before I entered the room. I told Dad to check the device logs, check the cameras, check the account routing. I told him I'd been at dinner with my friend Naomi on Tuesday. I showed him the messages. I was talking too fast, breathing too fast, the way you do when you can feel your life tilting and you're trying to shoulder it back into place with facts. He didn't want facts. He wanted ease, and Betrayal's lie was easier than my truth. Then he said the line that split something in me clean in half. "You're 19 now. If you can steal from this family, you can survive without it." He handed me the suitcase. My birthday present was exile. Before I tell you what I did next, I want to ask you something. If the person who raised you looked you in the face and called you a thief without proof, would you have fought right there on the porch? Or would you have walked away and let the truth catch up to them later? Tell me where you're listening from too, because that night, standing under a flickering bus stop light with one suitcase and nowhere to sleep, I learned silence can be sharper than begging. I didn't scream. That's the part people always expect. I didn't pound on the door. I didn't throw the suitcase back. I didn't give Betrayal the scene she was practically leaning forward to enjoy. I just left. Naomi's older sister let me sleep on her sofa in a tiny apartment over a laundromat. I cried exactly once that first night, and it wasn't even the dramatic kind. It was the quiet, humiliating sort. Face turned to the wall, one hand over my mouth, the kind of crying you do when you don't want strangers hearing your whole life come apart. By morning, the grief had changed shape. It wasn't grief anymore, it was concentration. See, my father made one major mistake. He accused the girl who knew his business better than anyone. I had built most of his digital filing system. I knew what software he used, what backups were automatic, which vendor got sloppy with timestamps, and which outside accountant only answered emails before 8 a.m. So for 3 days, I did not chase my father. I built my case. Day 1. I logged into the backup archive he forgot I had access to. The money transfers were made under my username, yes, but not from my laptop. They came from the office desktop between 11:42 p.m. and midnight. On nights, I wasn't even home. Day 2. I called the print shop next door to Dad's office. The owner knew me. I asked whether his external camera still covered the alley entrance. It did. He checked at 11:37 p.m. on Tuesday. Brielle walked into that alley in a cropped leather jacket and white trainers. Not alone, her boyfriend was with her. At 12:06, they came out laughing. Day 3, I sent everything to Dad's accountant and copied the company's fraud insurer, not my father. Then the account receiving the stolen money had been opened under a variation of my name, but the linked phone number belonged to Brielle. The spending after that was almost insulting in its stupidity. Designer bags, hotel deposits, and a payment toward her boyfriend's gambling debt. I didn't need to ruin her. I just needed to stop protecting the people who would have ruined me. That Friday afternoon, I got a call from a fraud investigator with the county police department. Calm voice. Careful questions. I sent over the archive, the camera stills, the transfer history. He thanked me, and then I waited. That was the revenge, if you want the truth. Not shouting, not posting, not revenge in the way people imagine it. I let procedure do what my father had refused to do. 2 weeks after he threw me out, I was folding borrowed clothes on Naomi's sofa bed when my phone lit up with his name. Dad, I stared at it until it stopped. Then it rang again, then again. When I finally answered, he sounded like a man calling from the bottom of a well. Elena, please, come home. Not, are you okay? Not, I'm sorry, come home, like the place he had thrown me out of was still mine to return to. I said nothing. So he kept going, fast, breathless, saying Brielle had made a terrible mistake, saying the police had been to the house, saying her mother was hysterical, saying clients had been informed there was an internal investigation, saying payroll was a mess and he needed help sorting the accounts before Monday. That was the moment it truly landed for me. He wasn't calling because he missed his daughter. He was calling because the daughter he discarded was the beam holding up his entire ceiling. An hour later, he showed up outside Naomi's building in the rain. No pride left, shirt damp at the shoulders, hair flattened, looking older than I had ever seen him. He said he'd been manipulated. He said he should have listened. He said Brielle was falling apart, crying, begging me not to press this any further. He said if I came back, we could handle it privately, as a family. That almost made me smile. Family. That word always arrives after the damage, never before it. A few minutes later, Brielle herself called me, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe, saying she was stupid, not evil, saying she only meant to borrow the money, saying she never thought Dad would actually throw me out, saying if I didn't help, she could be charged. There it was. The first honest thing she'd offered me, panic. Real panic. And for a second, I pictured my father's office. The suitcase. My mother's old handle in his hand, the way Brielle stood there and watched me get erased. So I said, very quietly, you packed my life into a box before you even knew if your lie would hold. You don't get to ask me for mercy now that it did. Then I hung up. I didn't go back. I sent my father one email. Just one. I told him I would cooperate fully with the investigation. I told him I would not lie to save Brielle. I told him if he needed professional help untangling the company accounts, I'd do it as an independent contractor at an hourly rate paid in advance, and I told him one more thing. He would never again accuse me of anything in private and expect my silence in return. He paid the invoice. That part still makes me laugh. For 6 days, I helped clean up the books remotely. Every file I sent had a timestamp. Every answer was brief. Every boundary had a lock on it. Brielle did not escape consequences. The company pressed civil recovery. The investigator said criminal charges depended on repayment and cooperation, but her pretty little life cracked wide open anyway. Her boyfriend disappeared the second the money did. Her mother stopped calling me dramatic. Funny how quickly vocabulary changes when lawyers enter the room. And my father? My father begged more than once. He apologised at last, but apologies sound thin when they arrive after evidence. He said he'd been ashamed, said he'd failed me, said he wanted me home, said we could start over, but some doors don't close when people think they do. Some doors close when you finally decide to stop standing in them. I found a room to rent near campus that summer. Small place, bad plumbing, wonderful peace. I bought my own kettle, my own sheets, my own groceries, and for the first time in my life, nobody in that home looked at me like I owed them my usefulness to stay. That was the real revenge, not watching Betrayal panic. Not hearing my father beg, it was discovering how calm life gets when you stop auditioning for love in rooms where your innocence was never enough. I still have that suitcase, same navy shell, same scratched wheel, but now when I look at it, I don't think about the night I got kicked out. I think about the version of me that walked away with nowhere to go and still somehow carried herself like evidence. So let me leave you with this. If someone destroyed your peace, lied to your family, and only came crying when consequences arrived, would you forgive them because they're blood? Or would you do exactly what I did? Step aside, let the truth speak, and never move back into a house that only wanted you when it needed saving. If this hit you in the chest, tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories where the quiet girl stops being the easiest person to blame, stay here with me.